Welcome to the Tavern, World Builders! Today we're talking about the epic historical fantasy novel, The Will of the Many by James Islington. Beware for those who have not yet read this novel, here there be spoilers. Grab an ale, zero proof always available, and pull up a chair. I'm Emma, your friendly barkeep, along with Allison.
Hello!
And Christiana.
Hi!
And we are so happy to have you here. Cheers!
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 So, here's a description of the book. It's a little bit wordy, but we actually, believe it or not, have cut it down quite a bit from there's a lot that happens in this book, so bear with me, and this is what happens in the novel. After the Catanan Republic conquers his homeland and executes the rest of the royal family, Vis goes into hiding at the edge of society, working as a guard in a prison and fighting in the underground circuit to earn money that will help him escape the hierarchy altogether. However, Vis catches the attention of Magnus Quintus Alquiscor, a powerful senator who wants him to train at the Catanan Academy and investigate the murder of his brother. He also catches the attention of the Anguis, a rebel group who knows his true identity and also wants him to work for them. But Vis doesn't approve of their brutal methods and turns them down. At the Catanan Academy, Vis makes a few friends, notably with Calidus, the son of an important government official, and Aidhin, a foreign-born student who hates the hierarchy almost as much as Vis does, as well as rivals. The school is overseen by Principalis Viridius, whom Alquiscor believes is responsible for the strange accident that killed his brother. Along with the challenges of the academy, Vis faces constant pressure from Alquiscor to discover the secret of his brother's death, which Alquiscor believes is related to the mysterious ruins of a pre-cataclysm society on the island where the academy is. At one of the ruins, Vis encounters a labyrinth that is identical to one the academy uses to train students. While experimenting with the ruined labyrinth, Vis interacts with strange figures who warn him about the dangers of something called synchronism. When these figures enter the labyrinth, they are torn apart by wraiths of swirling obsidian glass. At the end of the year, Vis is ordered by Alquiscor to run the labyrinth in the ruins or face imprisonment. Simultaneously, the Anguis pressure him through blackmail to graduate at the top of his class, which will guarantee that he can choose a position within the hierarchy that will be advantageous to their cause. During the final competition to determine class placements, Vis returns to the ruins and runs the labyrinth. Upon making it through, he enters a chamber that claims to be a pathway to Obiteum and Lucium. He falls unconscious and awakes in a seemingly unchanged room, now surrounded by indistinct hovering figures. Though he's initially trapped, writing appears suddenly on his arm to guide him out of the chamber, and he escapes with only an odd bite on his arm from one of the hovering figures. Vis returns to the competition, but realizes that members of the Anguis are now hunting the remaining students. Vis helps other students to escape, but his wound from the labyrinth continues to worsen. When nearing the end of the competition, Vis encounters his love interest, Emissa, who sees the strange and distinctive wound on his arm. Distraught, she attempts to kill Vis. He survives the attempt, though it delays his rescue of Calidus from the Anguis saboteurs, causing Calidus' death. Vis returns to the academy and is declared the winner of the competition. Principalis Viridius, showing knowledge of the labyrinth, promises to explain everything and claims to be trying to prevent a second cataclysm. Though he begs Vis to choose a position under him, Vis refuses, deciding instead to gather more information by joining the route of governance and working under Calidus' father. In the epilogue, called Synchronism, an alternate version of Vis awakens in the chamber after running the labyrinth in the ruins. Symbols around him suggest he is in Lucium. A third version of Vis wakes up in Obiteum, where he is greeted by Alquiscor's brother, warning him of a larger conflict to come.
What?
Dun dun dun! That ending! I literally put the book down and texted our group chat being like, the ending though! Having gotten through that mouthful of a description, let's jump into Happy Hour. How did we all feel about this book? Nobody had read it before, right? This is a fairly new novel.
I'm a little miffed at you, Emma, for picking this.
What? This is a fantastic book. What are you talking about?
I am a little miffed because book 2 is not out.
That is fair. That is my one complaint. She was like, no, the second volume is not out yet.
I was like, oh no, it ends on like a cliffhanger and there's no second book. I have to wait for it.
Yeah, although it's supposed to be coming out later this year, I think. There's no set date yet, but that's the...
I do like that James Islington has proven that he can complete a series and like get books out because this isn't his first series. So that's nice. Yes. We will probably get it pretty soon. So
Yeah, if we're stuck on this cliffhanger forever, I will be very mad. What do you mean there's clones? There's clones and we don't know what happens? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I really liked this. I was surprised how much I like it. I've kind of been avoiding epic fantasy lately. I've read a lot of epic fantasy throughout my life, and I love the genre. It's just, it takes a lot of energy because there's a lot of world building, a lot of new terms to learn, usually a lot of characters. But I'm really glad that we read this because it was fantastic.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. It strayed very far away from the Chosen One trope in the sense that, so for those who haven't read it, we didn't talk too much about the will and what the will of the many refers to.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the magic system really at all in that description.
Yeah. So basically people can give up some of their will. It's not described precisely what it is, but sort of
Magic
life
power.
force.
Yeah,
Basically.
energy, something.
And they create this giant pyramid scheme where the more important you are, the more people are giving their will to you. And Vis just wholesale hates the idea, refuses to go along with it, and refuses to use the system or give to the system. So I thought it was interesting that you kind of have the main character who is already immediately, always and forever at a disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was interesting. But I will say he was poster boy Mary Sue. Just like, despite this disadvantage, very, very good at everything and super duper smart for a 17-year-old who's like outsmarting all of these 60-year-old government officials who have been leading wars and strategizing for decades. But I gave him a pass because it was so deeply satisfying whenever he did that.
He reminded me a little bit of Kvothe from The Name of the Wind. Like, just a really smart guy.
Interesting. Way less obnoxious than Kvothe.
Yes, way less. I like this a lot better. And it's sort of believable because Ulsiskor finds him because he's so smart.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And he
Picks
does,
him
most of
because
it
he's
is like
smart and
explained as like he was raised as a prince, so he had like the best tutors in the world.
Yeah.
And also
Yeah.
he does at the academy, because they're actually not allowed to use will at the academy because they're like training them without it.
He's on a
so-
level playing field.
Yeah, so that will
somewhat.
be interesting to see
Yeah.
in the next book for sure, because I think he's going to be feeling more pressure.
I feel like
too.
maybe he is developing some powers because at the end he does some telekinesis stuff. His body seems to be healing when it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So he might
Yeah.
become more of a Chosen One trope.
Yeah. And we've seen the Anguis use like magic that doesn't seem to be the will, so it seems like maybe
Yeah.
there's a second magic system that he's tapping into.
Yeah.
That's my fear for the second book. And I was upset when he started healing a little bit better. I was like,
Yeah.
that's literally my favorite thing about this book is
I
like,
really liked that too.
'cause
I'm a little
it's
bit
so
sad that
easy,
he
yeah.
seems to be super powered now.
this is certainly not to say every fantasy story. I think a lot of fantasy stories include some sort of healing magic as a very easy way to clean up messes. You know, like, oh, this person needs to fight the dragon and then free the princess from the castle. Oh, the dragon almost ripped his arm off. Well, what do I do in this book? He just sits around for 5 weeks and then waiting to heal and then go save the princess. No, he heals himself magically and off we go. So sometimes I feel like it could be like a little bit of a Band-Aid, a literal magical Band-Aid for plot.
I don't know if you mentioned this in the summary, but he loses his arm at the end of the book, and I really hope that it doesn't come back. Like, I want him to be disabled now. I like disability rep, so yeah.
Yeah, I don't think from the way it like described it and everything,
I don't
feel
think
like
it
it's
they
probably
will,
gone
yeah.
for good. But yeah,
Yeah.
they- you know, sometimes people do a switcheroo. It's like, oh yeah, suddenly. Although it seems like maybe some of the clones don't, like in the other realms that he wakes up in.
Yeah, he might have
I
versions
think
that have both arms.
One of
so.
them for sure, his arm like got blown off as he went through it, but I don't remember what the other one if he had both arms. So that would be interesting too.
Yeah.
To see the differences between them. Although we're clearly getting into the meat of the discussion, so I think let's hop on over to Tavern Talk. So, as we said in the description, this is a epic fantasy. It's also sort of an epic historical fantasy because it is inspired very clearly by like Golden Age Roman Empire, although it's not a one-to-one. But it does have enough of a kind of history that you can call it maybe a historical fantasy.
I checked the publisher's page because I was curious what they were categorizing it as, especially because I was really interested that it has kind of a YA feel to it, even though it's really
Yes.
long.
Yes.
It reminded me of Red Rising by Pierce
Oh, very
Brown.
much like Red Rising. Yeah.
Which is YA, and so I was curious how they were marketing it. And they are marketing it as adult, and they have it in 3 categories: action adventure, historical, and epic, all under the fantasy umbrella. I thought that was interesting because usually when I think of historical, I think of alternate history in our world and not secondary world, but inspired by. So yeah, that's neat. It's definitely in Roman. They use Roman type naming schemes and everything, and it
And
very much has
togas.
that feel.
Yeah, and the styluses and the writing tablets.
And their obsession with hierarchy, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a gladiator festival kind of thing where there's like boats fighting each other in an arena.
In the totally not Roman Colosseum.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so the influences are very much there. For sure. I've saw some people referring to this as like a dark academia book. I'm like, no. Just because it takes place in a school does not make it a dark.
It doesn't feel that way, does it? I mean, it's dark and there's a school, but I don't know.
Yeah, but I feel like dark academia is more like kind of gothic-y. And
I know what you mean.
Yeah, there's a different vibe. It's like one of those things where like the sum of the parts, like calling it a dark academia is different than just like a dark story that's also academic. It's like it's another kind of thing that's happening. But it shows you how kind of like fluid genre is, which is very interesting.
Yeah, I'm always curious how publishers decide to market something.
Yeah, I'm really curious about the decision not to market it as YA. Like, you're probably right in the sense that it's long and
I think that might be
I think
densely
it's probably
reason.
the biggest thing, because it's
It's
630 pages, so like...
But it
That's
reads like a
awkward.
YA to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and the
So-
age frame, like he's like 17 turning 18, which is
It
like,
also partly
prime.
reads as YA to me because it's only narrated by Viz.
Yeah.
Which
Yes,
a lot of
yeah.
epic fantasy has multiple narrators, which makes it sort of more wide. The story scope is wider, and you go to like different areas of the world where all these characters are and different viewpoints. And so this felt more narrow because it's only through Viz. But it's still a very broad scoped story, so I understand why they are calling it epic as well. It's also, like I said, got lots of terms, you know, fantasy terms and things, which is a very epic fantasy thing, you know, lots of words to learn, intense magic system.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, I can see it going both ways, but probably the length might have
Yeah.
been the biggest reason.
Yeah, which is also related to like cost. Like YA books like, often tend to be less expensive too, which is also probably like
Well,
part of
maybe
the
because
market.
they're not as long.
Yeah,
yeah.
although I think that could be like a self-fulfilling thing because often, you know, if you don't have adult money, it's
Yeah.
cheaper books are better, and so you're gonna be hard pressed to convince a teen to spend, you know, $40 on a massive book.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's dive into what makes it an epic fantasy.
I've been thinking about this question all week. I'm like, what makes epic fantasy epic? And so I brainstormed some ideas and looked up some tropes and common things. So it's not that you have to have all these things, but these are some common things for epic fantasy. And the first one is a secondary world.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't think you can have epic fantasy in this world. I think it would be called something else.
Yeah.
It would be, even if it was long.
Yeah, for anybody unfamiliar, secondary world means like taking place on a planet that is not any version of Earth, just like a
Yeah.
whole separate.
Which this
world.
is.
Yes,
I forget
yeah.
what it's called. Something Romanish.
Yes, yeah.
Latin-y.
Although sometimes you like start on a world you think is secondary, and then it like turns out like a Planet of the Apes. Like, oh, this was whatever
that's
all
true.
along. So
Yeah.
like, it's post Cataclysm,
Maybe
which is like an
this is-
apocalypse. So it
We don't
could
know.
be, but we think
Or it could
it's
be
not.
our world in like the far distant future after
Yes,
it's
yeah.
hit by an apocalypse.
But we don't think so. It doesn't seem like our Earth. So I think it's
Yeah,
Pretty,
but even if
yeah.
you do that, I feel like it still counts as epic in the secondary world because that's just not really clear. Then you have like a big scope or scale, often in terms of geography. So like the fate of the entire world is at stake as opposed to one person or even one city or something. And then in terms of history, as in like the events of the story will be recorded in the world's history. Like this is significant happenings going on, which seemed to be the case here, or at least that it's leading up to that. It obviously hasn't really happened, but the groundwork is being laid out for something big, maybe a cataclysm happening again. Another apocalyptic event is what they're trying to prevent, or at least that's what's his name tells
Viridius.
Viridius. I'm assuming he's telling the truth because that's just too interesting a tidbit for him to be lying about.
Yeah.
It reminded me a bit of Mistborn, like the Mistborn twist at the end, where you sort of learn that the people you think are the villains are trying to do something good, even if they're going about it the wrong way. And spoiler for Mistborn, I guess. Sorry.
I haven't read Mistborn yet, so I'm just over here catching strays, I guess. It's okay.
And I think I remember reading that James Islington was inspired by Mistborn and some other epic fantasies, which makes sense. You can kind of see that impression in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I think for a lot of epic fantasies, because so much is happening, they tend to get longer. Like, you have longer books and you have longer series. So the first book in an epic fantasy series tends to not have those, like, world-ending stakes yet. Like, this one, like, Red Rising would be similar. Mistborn, like, Way of Kings. A lot of epic fantasy, the first book is not quite as big in scope because it's like usually at the end of that first book where you're like, oh no, the stakes are so much higher than I ever imagined.
You have to do a lot with the first book in an epic fantasy because you have a lot of groundwork to lay out in terms of world building, like just world building alone, and then you have characters and plot. So like it's just a lot.
Yeah.
I was trying to think about if it could have been split into two to make it a shorter YA story, but I don't know. I don't know if it could have been.
There's not really a good. I mean, any story can. It's like if you did a lot of reworking, but like I think in its current form, there's no obvious spot to be like, oh yes, here, because like even this school system. So like, you know, another very famous, we don't like TERFs, but another famous story, Harry Potter is of course divided into like each grade is its own book. But the way that the school works, the grades aren't based on like years or ages. It's just like as you prove yourself worthy and or get a teacher to like you, they advance you to the next class. So it also wouldn't even really have worked to be like, oh, well, when he's in class 7, that's one book, and then class 6 is one book. So
I don't think I would split it. If anything, if I had to, I would shorten it. But like I found it interesting, so I don't feel like it needed to be short.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like I would shorten it too, but not necessarily plot wise. I think just some of the like literal physical writing. I think there's like some. You know, like there's some passages that are very like there's a not often.
I strongly disagree.
There's just some. Maybe it's me. A lot of the fights went on, like the physical fights went on for like pages. But that's like a personal thing of mine.
That's fair. Yeah.
I definitely really wanted it to get to the school, so I found myself like, okay, let's get to the school. And there's a bunch of stuff that happens before that.
Get us to the school. Yeah.
We all love a school trope. I think we talked about that like in depth and like I love a school. I love that there's always like a tournament at the end where then, you know, everything is revealed. Which also
yes, I love the Hunger Games like tournament at the end, except that they're not actually trying to kill each other. But yeah, it still feels very cutthroat, the school does. And you know that people have died at this event before. And so you're like, this is really serious and what's going to happen. Yeah, it was all really good tension.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that it was necessary as part of the world building. Sometimes epic fantasies can, I personally find, since the stakes are so big, that they forget to include the smaller conflicts sometimes. And this certainly was rife with smaller conflicts. And it didn't feel like, you know, they were just, you know, like the hobbits walking for a very, very long time to Mount Doom kind of thing. Like there was also all these like other little hurdles and conflicts that had to be overcome first. Yeah.
I really liked the added tension from Vis being this prince of a conquered nation city. He's the only surviving person who is supposed to have been hung along with his family. And so there's this constant, like, I have to keep this secret. Can't tell anyone who I am. And then he starts to feel really guilty when he starts to make actual friends with people
and they trust him with their deep secrets. And he's like, but I can't trust you with mine. Or like, he even thinks to himself like that he maybe could, but like, he still doesn't. Like
he still doesn't. And although it apparently may have been good because it turns out one of his friends, it's unclear yet what exactly she was up to, but there's, you know.
Oh, do you mean Amissa?
Yeah.
Ah, yes.
So I guess we'll see with that. Seems like she may have been working for somebody.
Yeah, well, she knows more than, because she saw the bite on his arm and then thought he was, like, infected by this. So clearly she knows more than she's saying. Although I got the impression, because it sounded like Viridius, the teacher, has been, like, recruiting students to, like, help with this, like, avoiding the cataclysm. So I think he's, like, recruited her. Yeah. But...
And then I fell in love with Calidus. I loved him so much.
Oh, he was so sweet.
And it was very, very sad.
Yeah, Calidus was good. He was a good character. I liked him.
Yeah, he's just like the bookish, smart,
and just
quiet
so loyal
friend.
to this.
So loyal.
In this school of just cutthroat people, he was
Yeah.
like an actual good person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way that they wrote his death, I thought was really good, because like Vis comes back, finds him, like has all these injuries, and then like tries to bandage him up and like bring him back to the school. And the chapter ends with them, like, walking. And then the beginning of the next chapter is, like, I don't know exactly when Calidus died. And then it's, like, talking about them still walking. And it's just, like, oh, the, like, gut punch of, like, oh, he's, like, there's no saving him. It's just brutal.
Yeah.
I also really liked his other friend, as he makes another good friend, Aiden, who is, like, he's from, he's also from, like, a conquered nation. And he doesn't speak the language very well, so he's, like, having difficulty in school. But he's also just, like, incredibly loyal. And actually, he gets... In this tournament, each of the, like, people in the upper class get to choose 2 helpers, and he asks Aiden to help him, and then Aiden initially says yes, and then he has, like, a secret meeting with the principal, and we find out later that they're all offered, like, a secret prize if they...
Yeah, what do you think he was offered that made him say no?
I don't know, but clearly whatever it was, like, enough that he's like, I would be tempted to screw you over to get this prize, and therefore I'm not going to even go in because you can't trust me. It was like, oh, what a... But I think that will come up in book 2, is like, what exactly was he offered?
I think Viridius is going to be like, there's a place that I can send you where you won't be a part of the hierarchy. Because that has been Vis's goal this whole time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine the tension there, where it's like, can I really blame him for doing the thing that I originally came to this academy to do?
Yeah, and especially, like, because his culture is very much, like, death before dishonor, like, very Klingon.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the fact that he has been forced to capitulate and, like, work with the hierarchy to protect his people, but, like, he feels a lot of shame about that, like, personally. So, definitely, if he could get out front of the thumb,
Or
I could see that.
whatever
being, like, a big prize.
was the thing that, when he said he killed 3 Praetorian guards and was in the Sapper for a year.
Yeah.
Something to do with that, maybe.
Oh yeah, the Sappers, which are part of this, like, magic system, which, like, essentially takes more of your power away from you
against
to give to the hierarchy
will.
Against your will.
It takes your will against your will.
Yeah. Normally you're just giving up, like, a little bit of it for someone else to use, but the Sapper is essentially, like, draining. It's kind of like, it's very Matrixy, like, the battery that powers the the system.
Yeah, I wanted to learn more about that in the world building, actually.
I mean, that takes us to our next point, which is that often magic plays a big part in the story of epic fantasy. Not always. We have Game of Thrones, which has very little magic in it.
Mm-hmm.
At least as far as I've read and seen. I haven't read the very last books. Maybe Emma has.
Yeah, I mean,
Is
it's
there,
definitely,
like,
the whole part of it is that, like, magic is coming back, so I definitely think, like, even in the later books a little bit, and it's definitely, like, ramping to it, so I think in books 6 and 7, should those ever actually come out, magic is, like, growing, but yeah, definitely, like, the first bits are very, like, light.
It's just kind of a medieval, brutal society in the first few books. So this is not a must-have, but it is an often. Like, I'm thinking, Name of the Wind, which has 2 different magic systems. Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time, which has one of my favorite magic systems. I love the 1 power. Mistborn and the elements, manipulating the elements. So, like, often magic has just this big part. And like Christiana said earlier, I just loved how Vis was not a mage.
Yeah.
And, didn't have that advantage. Wasn't the special magic power kid. But the opposite. But still, the magic system plays a huge role in this society.
Yes.
I found it really funny that it was a pyramid scheme.
Literally.
Literally, yeah.
It's just a pyramid scheme with your life force, which really what is capitalism as it stands now, but a pyramid scheme of your life force.
It's a perfect metaphor.
Yeah.
So we hear a lot about the magic, but because so much of the story takes place in the school where there is no will being used, it's not allowed. we don't really get to see a whole lot of it in action.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of fun because it makes it feel more mysterious. So, like, it feels more magical still. Like, I'm sure in the next books you'll get more into it, and like,
I expect it will
be
get
using
more,
it. But it's kind of fun right now. This is like it does feel like this like mysterious, omnipresent force everywhere.
It was a really cool magic system to me because it was like, yes, you get all this will and it makes you kind of like powerful in a sense, but a lot of what you use it for is imbuing objects. And I thought that was like a kind of interesting take on a magic system.
This gets a pen from someone who he uses it to write secret messages to. The pen that's been imbued with will. Yeah, that was really interesting.
Yeah, because I think sometimes it turns into like, and then blue laser beams shot out of my hands and red laser beams shot out of his hands, and you know.
I mean, there's a time and place for that. Let's
no,
not
absolutely.
knock
No.
Yeah.
I am not at all. I'm just saying I found this one really interesting because I was like, oh.
From the hands.
Yes.
I'm a fan of laser beams. I'm just saying.
Same. I want laser beams coming out of the tips of each individual finger.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a cool take on a magic system where it's
I
like,
agree.
I'm
It's
trying to think of another one like it, and I can't really.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is. Just can't think of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious what all Will can do. Because I don't know if we've met any of the really high uppers. We've met Viz's dad was up there.
Yes.
So
yeah. He's important. Well, so we've seen they use them to move these like giant flying ships, basically.
Yeah, that's
that true. We've also seen them use it for like fighting. So like people, you get really strong or like, and like sturdy, so like injuries don't hit you. You can hit really powerful. One guy's like throwing trees around.
Yeah, the tree throwing was very cool. I was like, oh my goodness. You don't want to have someone mad at you who knows how to use will.
We also saw some of the tech or like imbued objects, like stuff that Will can do during the tournament with like trackers. Like everybody got like a little stone that could then be tracked. So like there's some...
Yeah, that was very cool. I liked that a lot.
I thought that was really fun.
Yeah.
Also, when they, I'm going to be gross for a second. When they made them swallow trackers and they're like, how did you get this tracker and the other person? Like, why is this person have the wrong tracker? And they're like, the gross way. And I was like, they could poop that fast? And then they're like, they vomited it up. And then I was like, oh, that makes way more sense. I don't know why my brain
does.
Yeah. My brain immediately, I was just like, what? It's like, good on you.
Fast digestive system
so
in this
much
world.
fiber in your diet. Yeah.
It's all bread. It's all whole grains.
It's all,
when Amisa used Will at the end, I was actually shocked because I just forgot that there would be kids who could use it and just weren't because they weren't allowed.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, she uses it to like hurl a knife, so I think that's what
she uses it, to kill the guy that's attacking this before she then tries to kill this because she realizes his blood is tainted, which is a thing that's been mentioned throughout this book about people getting their blood checked all the time and like blood being tainted, and that still hasn't, I don't know what that is. Like, maybe it's something that shows when someone has successfully gone through the maze.
Yeah, or unsuccessfully, maybe. Cause
I don't know. But I'm really curious about that because I noticed that like several times.
At first I thought, because there's the thing of like your blood gets collected before you go to the academy, and I thought they were gonna like discover some sort of DNA thing and he would be revealed as being whatever, but then it turns out it's a more magical thing. Another hallmark of epic fantasy is good and evil being very delineated and very obvious, which is not as popular these days, I think. Like,
I don't think it's as popular now, and I kind of like that. I like the morally gray stories a little bit better, and you definitely have that here because you have the evil capitalist government, but then you also have the rebels who aren't just black and white good.
Yeah.
Viz doesn't like them because they're terrorists, even though they're opposing a poor system. He has a conversation with one of them where they basically say their plan is just to like change the leadership and not actually change the system itself.
Yeah, and very like Hunger Games coin taking over. No, and he's like, that doesn't change anything.
Yeah,
you're in charge of this awful thing. Yeah. Great. Yeah.
I really loved how he was sort of a pacifist. I mean, obviously he does violent things because he has to. There's the scene at the beginning where the Angui perform an act of terrorism at this event that Viz is at. And he thinks about running away, but then he's like, I just can't let all these innocent people die, even though I don't agree with what these innocent people are doing, because they had just been like, you know, cheering on this very violent event where basically
and also
slaves
giving their
were
will
dying
to this like really awful system as well.
Yeah.
But he's like, I still can't let them die, which was a very mature thing for a 17-year-old to decide to do.
Well, and then he also but then he goes back to like fight the terrorist leader basically, and then like hesitates before killing him because he also like doesn't want to like kill somebody even when he's like, this, you're murdering people. This is essentially an act of self-defense. So
yeah, that part agitated me the tiniest bit.
Oh yeah.
Not necessarily in this specific instance, because I could see him being like, I have to stop him, he's killing people, and he's never killed someone before, and he's having this moment of, oh my god, can I even do it?
Yeah.
That's fine. It's more so in action movies than in fantasy and stuff, where it's like, they kill 50,000 goons, and then they get to the big bad, and they're like, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah.
That would make me just as bad as you. And I'm like, what? No. So when he had that moment and was thinking about it, I was like the tiniest bit annoyed because I was like, oh my god, this again. But it is very, very different. So
yeah,
it's very understandable. He's never killed anyone. He doesn't want to. Yeah,
it's more realistic than like sometimes in fantasy you get people who just like kill indiscriminately with like, and they're supposed to be like good guys or whatever, and it's like, okay, but you're like. Really, and like often, like humans don't really like killing other humans. Like there's this stat about people in the world wars and like how a lot of them didn't even fire their guns and stuff. Like people don't actually, for the most part, like killing other people. So sometimes you see like fantasy heroes, you're like, you're a sociopath. You're just like murdering everybody because I don't know. Authors think that history was all violent and murder. And it's like, well, it actually wasn't that. Like people didn't just go around murdering everybody all the time. So yeah, I think it made it a little bit more like realistic and relatable. That like he didn't have issues with violence. Like he fought in like an underground boxing ring and stuff. But like he sees the difference between like violence and like murder. I'm like, okay, that makes you a reasonable person, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised how much I liked him as a character. I often just don't like the protagonist. I like usually get attached to like the side characters, which I did here, but I really liked him. And he wasn't too angsty, you know, for a teenager, even though his entire family died. I really liked the scene where he goes back to his home. Yeah. And he just gets really emotional and is hit really hard by being back there and seeing it being controlled by these foreigners. And it was very just like sad and just him struggling to contain himself and not reveal anything. I thought it was really powerful.
It was an interesting take because oftentimes when authors are writing young people or teenagers, you often do turn to that like angsty thing. But sometimes they overlook the fact that like they're still kids, and kids often, you know, the more like, you know, the childlike wonder or the joy or the innocence and the naivety. And it's like they didn't entirely strip that away from him. Like even though he is a traumatized like kid who's been through all this stuff, he is still a kid, and that comes through in the writing. And it's not just like, oh, I'm a really angsty teenager. So it's nice sometimes to get that kind of opposite kind of character, just refreshing after you read a bunch of the same thing over and over.
And it was kind of nice that, especially with his interactions with Emisa, I feel like that could have gone very like, oh, everyone's telling me that I shouldn't get involved, but I'm going to because I love her. But it's more like he knows he shouldn't. And like it's reflected in his thoughts. He's like, I know I'm not supposed to get attached to this girl, but I really like her. You know, it was very relatable.
Yeah. I also really appreciated that, like, it was pretty obvious that they liked each other. There was no drawn out thing of like, no, I can't like her. Why do I keep looking at this person? I couldn't possibly understand why I like being around her. He's like, no, I like her. I'm just not supposed to or whatever. Like, okay. Yeah, he was very emotionally intelligent, I think, is maybe what I like, which is nice. It's nice to read about an emotionally intelligent character sometimes. And then, as a corollary to the, like, often good versus evil, there's, like, usually, like, a great evil to be defeated in an epic fantasy, which definitely seems like this is building to. Like, there's...
Yeah, they're working against the entire society itself. Like, it's not necessarily one big bad, like, you know, Sauron or Voldemort. this whole system
The hierarchy
needs to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a great name for like an evil organization too. Like,
Yeah.
great job on naming things.
All the names in this were very
Very
fun.
good.
You know, all the Latin-y, it very much made it feel Roman-inspired.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Man, we could keep talking about this. This just shows how much there is in this book. But we're like almost at our time limit, so we should hop on over to other things. But man, so much to dive into with this one. So next up is Proprietor's Pick. Allison, what do you have that's similar to this epic fantasy book?
So I've mentioned a few books that this gave me vibes of, and I believe that the author himself was inspired by. The Name of the Wind, Red Rising, and Mistborn are three that I really noticed while reading this. Though I don't know if I should be suggesting The Name of the Wind to anyone, because I don't know if that series is ever gonna be finished.
Never getting book 3.
Which people are a little miffed by. But I'm I feel bad for Patrick Rothfuss. It's just so much pressure. Just becoming a best-selling author so quickly and then just having all this. Yeah. So I'm not mad about that. It's okay if he just...
The only thing I'm mad about him for is that we did a fundraiser where it was if you raise enough money, I'll release a chapter of my book, and people did it, and he never released a chapter.
Yeah, that's not cool.
So I'm that's
rude.
the only reason why I give him more of a side eye than George R. R. Martin. Yeah,
that is an issue you have. You having writer's block. I don't know if getting more money and pressure is the answer to that.
Yes, but anyway, after that digression, yes, go on.
So on top of those 3 books, which are a bit older now, I think readers who like James Islington may also like the fantasy author Mark Lawrence, who's got some stunning epics out. I know a lot of people like them. I haven't actually read any of them, so I'm curious to read this one. So in particular, I'm going to comp Red Sister by Mark Lawrence, which is about a girl named Nona who is raised to be a killer at the convent of Sweet Mercy. Despite the security and isolation of the convent, Nona's secret and violent past finds her out, drawing with it the tangled politics of a crumbling empire. Her arrival sparks old feuds to life, igniting vicious struggles within the church and even drawing the eye of the emperor himself. Beneath a dying sun, Nona must master her inner demons, then loose them on those who stand in her way.
Oh my goodness, that sounds so good. Also,
fun.
A convent of assassin nuns.
Yeah, I really like that sort of the religious, but assassins. That's very fun.
Also called the Convent of Sweet Mercy.
Yeah,
delicious.
Yes, I can imagine them being here's your sweet mercy, and then slitting someone's throat or whatever. Right? That's gotta happen.
Yeah. So you can buy Red Sister and The Will of the Many on our bookshop.org page and support us and the author and an indie bookstore. So do it.
3
what are you
for
waiting
1.
for?
Do it. And with that, we are at Last Call. Here, we will give you some concluding thoughts and questions that you can take when you're building your own world. Allison, what did you take away from The Will of the Many that you think is a great world building tip?
When writing epic fantasy in particular, any fantasy, but especially epic, the beginning can be really hard because you have to figure out when and how and what world building to impart, and it can be a challenge. And I find a lot of writers, particularly beginning writers, will start with some sort of action scene because the idea is that you want people to be invested and action is fun and interesting, so let's start with a fight or something. So as I was reading this, I was like, oh, I really love how this author could have started with the fight scene with this in the arena, but he didn't. Because it's not usually smart. I will never say never do something because, some author will come along and do it really, really well. So it's not that it can't be done. Just that starting with a fight scene makes it more difficult for yourself because readers have no reason to be rooting for the characters yet. So, there's no investment in the fight. So, if you had just started with this fighting this guy, you would be like, who am I supposed to root for? Yeah. Why do I care about this fight, etc., etc.? But instead, you have this starting in his regular life up to this point, which has been working at this prison, which is a really good place to start if you're not sure where to start. Start with your character's life right before the thing happens that kind of interrupts things. So you have him in the prison, and then you have a little bit of world building, and it's very sprinkled in. So I recommend that you read the first few chapters of this book in particular, or really any fantasy book that you love, and be like, okay, what world building information is imparted and how and where, and how is it made digestible? Because if you do too much at once, it's just too much. And even in this book, there was a lot. Because there was just so much world building. So you get a lot of new terms, a lot of character names, but it was still done slowly enough and like dribbled instead of poured so that you can still be invested in character. And the trick is really to show who your character is, what they want, and what is getting in the way of what they want. Those three things really help you sort of feel for them. Be like, okay, they want this because of motivation X, and this thing's getting in their way. And that'll just get you really feeling for the character and rooting for them. And then you can start layering in your world building. So that's my very, very long advice about how to intro.
Summed up, start all of your stories in a prison. No matter what, they should all begin.
Yeah, that's really what the crux of what I was saying.
Yeah. It's good advice, though, because I don't like it often. Like, same with you. I'm certain I can find an example of my own library that I love that does it. But it does feel like a cheesy 80s movie where it's like record scratch. Yep, that's me. I bet you're wondering how I got here. And I'm like, yeah, actually, I am. I feel like we could have started there.
Yeah.
Although, for an example of that, I do feel like, what is it, Nettle and Bone that we talked about kind of does that, where she's like in the middle of a thing, and then she's like, oh wait, but this is how we got. Anyway. But,
that's true, but she's not in the middle of like
a fight.
An intense action scene. It's like very introspective how Nettle and Bone starts. But
this is just to show that I will work Nettle and Bone into literally any conversation.
Every conversation.
You should.
Christiana, what advice do you have for us based on The Will of the Many for world building?
Yes. So my advice is that things don't have to always emotionally make sense to the reader, but they do have to make sense in the world that you've built. So there are some instances in this book that, for example, when one of Vis's classmates, Iroh, really hates him, not because he came into the academy with this famous dad and did all these things. It's because he saved a bunch of people at the Colosseum, but his sister died there. And for a lot of people, yes, that would make emotional sense. For me, I was like, that seems like a really random reason to hate someone. It's like, how dare you save lives? But when you actually look at the context within the story and within the world that it was built in, that very, very intense patriarchal, like, you should be defending and protecting your own family and their interests at all time. Yeah, it makes sense that this new up-and-comer who just comes in and does it would kind of rub you the wrong way. So.
Yeah, and also, like, emotions often don't make sense to people who aren't experiencing them. So like, totally.
But it does have to make sense in the world building. Like, if he showed up to the academy and everyone loved him, or he showed up to the academy and was like super nice and trusting of everyone, it would be like, that does not make sense in this world.
Yeah.
Totally.
So even if you're thinking in the back of your head, why isn't he just nicer to everyone, or something like that, doesn't make sense in the world that you've built for that to be a character's approach to something. Or how.
Totally. I think that's really good advice. Something that I really picked up on, and we've talked about a bunch, I think, is the fact that this book takes something that's implicit in our society and makes it explicit in its society. So, like, the hierarchy is a very to the extreme version of capitalism, right? It's like all the base people feeding the higher-ups until you have a couple people on top who have all of the capital, right? So it's taking something that's kind of how it works in our world, too, but it's, you know, less explicit, and just making it fully explicit in, like, a fantasy or a sci-fi world is a great way to build the world. Like, just look around you. Look at implicit things that exist in the world or in relationships or around you, and think about what that would look like in a, like, literal, explicit sense in another world. and that can be a really good way, I think, of finding like inspiration for your world building and stuff like that.
How
love
can I
world building
turn
like
this
that.
thing into a magic system?
Yeah, exactly.
exactly.
Yeah. Like there's, which I think you could do with anything. Like this, like the fact that this is kind of like an MLM is so funny.
It's
and
so
yet,
funny
like,
to me, yeah.
But it doesn't seem like cheesy or corny or anything because of the way that it's set up. So
Yeah.
if you're ever stumped for world building, that's a way that you can get some ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, this does bring us to closing time. We'd love to stay longer, but these mysterious bloodstains are not going to scrub themselves out of the floorboards. Thank you so much for joining us at the tavern today. If hands-on world building is something that interests you along with these more theoretical discussions, make sure that you check out our world building workshops. These are bonus monthly episodes where we build a different element of a world every session, available for patrons at our $5 and up tiers at patreon.com/worldbuilderstavern. In this month's episode, we are building a plant. Yay, so if you like botany,
plant,
check
not
that
a
one out.
planet.
Not a
as
planet.
I first thought.
I definitely keep reading that wrong on our
Yeah.
spreadsheet. Like a planet? What? No, plant. Check out our description for a link to help a Palestinian family escape Gaza. You can find us on our website, worldbuilderstavern.com, which has links to our TikTok, Discord, and our bookshop.org page, where you can buy books we talk about on the podcast, which will support us and an indie bookstore. We hope to serve you here again soon, but until next time, scram!
Bye.
Get out of here.